Is Larry coming?
Not coming, so I believe so.
I don't know. Anybody feel like that.
Well, that's true. That is truer words have been.
Glad to have you.
Oh, we didn't have hello, hello,
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Being 7 o'clock, we'll open the May 4th, 2022 Planning and Zoning meeting. First is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public participation. If you wish to address the commission, please fill out a public meeting appearance card and present it to the town administrator, preferably before the meeting begins, pursuant to section 551-007 of the Texas Government Code. Citizens wishing to address the commission for items listed as public hearing will be recognized when the public hearing is opened. For citizens wishing to speak on a non-public hearing item, they may either address the commission during the public participation portion of the meeting or when the item is considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Approval of minutes. Anybody have changes?
I didn't either.
A motion? A second? Harry, second. All in favor? Unanimous. Back up. Discuss, consider, and make recommendations to the town council regarding the request to vacate a plat encompassing 23.696 acres known as Addison 1, Addition 1, Lot 1, Block 1, Bartonville, Texas. Is this?
Sure. This is actually not a public hearing item, though the town's ordinance requires that in vacating a plat, it does come through the Planning and Zoning Commission and the town council. Normally, when there's a vacated plat, there's a replat of all of that property that was part of the previous plat. This is a little bit different in that a portion of the property they'll be submitting a new plat for the majority of what's in the existing plat. Some of it would be left unplatted, which is not an ideal situation. But the item that's immediately following this on the agenda is to request a zoning change for the future Deer Hollow subdivision. All of the remaining unplatted property will be included in their new subdivision. So it would be kind of not immediately, but very shortly thereafter from now, it should be included in a new plat. So it wouldn't ultimately leave an area unplatted and kind of take that step backward for very long. And so
Where is it?
this is a portion of the Seals property. So
Okay.
it's just,
Size is the portion of it that would be vacated, and how much time are we looking at?
the entire portion of this plat that's in your packet would be vacated. The new
Oh.
plat it would be an administrative minor plat, so it wouldn't come back to you. It will just be approved by the mayor after review by the town engineer and planning staff, following the council action on vacating the plat. Initially, we thought, well, we'll put them on the agenda. We'll go ahead and put it on the agenda, even though it is a minor plat that can be done administratively. But we couldn't have you take action on that until the council vacates the plat at their upcoming meeting. So that will just be handled administratively. Does that kind of answer your question, or do you still have questions?
Buddy,
I mean,
And this is part of a court-ordered
right.
partition. I mean, technically you do, but if it's going to be replatted, plats, meeting the city's town's requirements have to be approved. This is a vacation of a plat. It's under a different statute. But from what I'm understanding, everything's going to be replatted. So, I mean, you do have discretion, but it's going to be remedied very shortly thereafter. So
My concern was just if something falls through and it doesn't get remedied and it leaves something unplatted. I'm not opposed to what's going to happen as long as it happens.
So the council does have the authority per the ordinance to require that all the property be replatted. That's something that's, I think, in the town ordinances given to the council as an option through the vacation process. But the property that would be replatted immediately, which is the stuff that we're mostly concerned about, that goes to the roadway, that would have utility easements, we already have the new plat documents for that area, which is the majority of this area. So there's some on the northern end, and we can pull up an overlay. I think I can get that ready before maybe during the public hearing, just kind of show you at the next item if you want to put this off. But the portion on the north end of the existing plat would become part of the new subdivision to the north. So that is not being replatted in with the new, their new plat.
So is there a way that we could make a motion and add if the vacated plat is not remedied within X amount of time or in a certain way? Is there not a way we could make a motion so that we wouldn't have to worry about it without them having to go through this replatting and then replat again?
I think, I mean, I guess you could table it till you had the other item.
Well, so one thing to just keep
Yeah.
in mind, we can't vacate the plat once the property is sold. And so they can't complete the sale and move forward with the subdivision and the new property until we have the boundary lines all settled, if that makes sense. So this is kind of the first step in that, and it's pushing off the I guess, the ultimate conclusion of the sale and the property until this is completed. So if this is tabled, it can't, it continues to come back to the same point.
Well, that's not my intent, is to table it. I just need to know from the attorney if there's some wording we need to put in a motion to vacate that.
Well, I think either we have to approve or not approve, but I don't see a basis for not approving it. Given the statute in play under the local government code on vacation of plats, I think as Corey indicated, if it's going to be sold off, then there's a problem with trying to vacate that plat. So it needs to occur prior to any of the property being sold.
So
Is your concern just that there would be some portion of property that would remain unplatted?
What is that acreage? Do we know? 23.
That would remain unplatted? I can get
Well,
that.
23 is what's
one.
being vacated.
Right, it's significantly less than that. Let me, I can't get it here.
keeping a portion of it? Is that why it's like, it needs to be in two different?
Yes, so the
Okay,
current owner
okay.
will, there are a number of parcels in place. I don't know how familiar you all are with that area. There are a number of different parcels and they're owned by, owner A and B, a trust, and it's very complicated in all the different parcels that are involved in that entire area. This one property that is platted, the reason the whole thing is not being replatted is because the current owner will not maintain ownership of the entire property. They are keeping the portion of it that will be replatted immediately administratively following the council's vacation of the plat. The portion that would be unplatted would belong to a different member of the settlement. And they are under contract to sell it for the development that is coming up in the next item. So I don't know timing wise, if the zoning change goes through tonight and then at council, I would imagine we will have a preliminary plat submitted very shortly thereafter, but that's still a process over a few months to get through all of the plans related to that.
So as the ordinance reads, we have we could, or council could direct the petitioners to prepare the revised final plat in accordance with the regulations. So when does that trigger? With
They can require it, but it's not going to be the same owners just due to this court. So I mean, we could wait until we have plats submitted for all of the properties, but that I don't know
messes
that that would.
up things too.
But I think the whole statute kind of contemplates, I won't say leap of faith, but that when you're vacating, given here, we're partitioning the property to sell it off, that eventually it would be replatted. I just don't think we can condition a plat approval. I mean, either you recommend approval or denial.
To vacate.
Yeah, to vacate, to put a condition on it. I don't think you can do that.
Is there any downside to us?
I think very little. I mean, cities always have unplatted lots, and so that's not unusual.
Okay.
And here, I would think it would eventually be, or very quickly be replatted. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the town has, I'm sure, a number of tracts that are just meets and bounds and not platted. So that's not unusual.
But okay, but it,
Sorry, just to clarify, earlier there was a question about how much acreage. So the current plat to be vacated is 23 acres and the new plat that they are submitting is over 19 acres. So that's the portion, we're talking about a few acres difference that would be left unplatted. So the worst case scenario is that is unplatted. I think it's highly likely, and you can, talk to the applicant about it in the next item if they have any ideas on timeline. I think it's highly likely that you'll see a plat submitted in the next few months for that property.
Motion to approve the request to vacate a plat encompassing 23.696 acres known as Addison 1, Addition Lot 1, Block 1, Bartonville, Texas.
Second,
I'll second.
John second. All in favor? Unanimous.
Did we have a vote from, did you vote or you?
No, I'm not voting.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Apologies. Just alternate.
Oh,
Just wasn't.
okay.
wasn't
All
paying
right.
attention.
Public hearing to receive public comment and consider recommendation of the town council regarding amendment to the town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361-05, the zoning regulations to change the zoning designation for approximately 81.38 acre area of land generally located east of Seals Road, west and south of Dove Creek Road, and north of Jeter Road from agricultural to residential estate, RE5. Staff.
Sure. Just as I mentioned, this is a subdivision.
We'll open public hearing at 7:13.
So this is a zoning change request from agricultural district to RE5, our residential estates 5, which is consistent with the town's land use plan. The entirety of the property that's being requested for zoning changes within the RE5 area on the town's future land use plan. And there's no request to deviate from that in any way. So all of the lots that they would be submitting would be 5 acres or greater. I'll start out by saying, remember, this is a zoning change, public hearing and action and consideration tonight. We're not talking about plating. We're not talking about road locations and lot lines and that sort of thing. That would be the next step. Right now, we're just talking about the entitlement for 5 acre lots on the property. And so as we'll get into, you should each have a few public comment forms before you that were submitted in on this action item. All of the questions that I've heard have been related to the location of certain roadways within the property, but not necessarily any concern specific or to trees, removal of trees, which I know is another big concern, but not any concerns related to the actual zoning change as is before you tonight. So I just wanted to kind of preface that. And for anybody who's here or watching the meeting, that is the next step in the process, which would be the preliminary plat that would be submitted sometime after zoning change is obtained. Like I said, this is consistent with the land use plan. And I don't know if you have any questions, I can answer any questions for you. We do have a small presentation by the applicant at whatever time you would like to do that.
Applicant, do you want to speak?
Evening, my name is Doug Powell with McAdams, 201 Country View Drive in Roanoke. I'm here representing Mike Malo, who's the developer of this project. And as Corey pointed out, this is just zoning, but we have done a concept plan to give an idea of how lots and roads could lay out. It is a wooded tract, or there's a lot of trees, and Mr. Molo is committed to building custom homes, trying to preserve as many of those trees as possible. Obviously, putting in roads and some utilities, and therefore you will have to take out some trees. But we think it's going to be a great addition to Bartonville, and as Corey mentioned, it does meet your master plan. So I think Corey passed out the concept plan we had. And there's a couple slides if we want to watch them.
No, we're just concerned with the zoning change at this point, so I don't know that how much of that we really need to address.
This first slide is just the location of the property, kind of shows you how it sits, adjacency. I will point out that Mr. Molo is a resident of Bartonville, and actually he's building in his backyard. He's in Hat Creek, and right adjacent to this property is his house, his current house.
Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Anybody got questions?
Is this, just a question, is this the 81 acres, is this the entire Seals property?
No, it's a portion that would be sold for the development.
Okay.
There's still quite a bit remaining. I don't know the total
Okay,
acreage.
yeah.
It's a whole bunch of different parcels, including the part that will be replatted and what you just vacated in the previous action.
See, we're just changing the zoning according to what the map says it's supposed to be, so. Anybody else?
Did you ask for public hearing comments opposed? I'm sorry, I heard
Yes.
4 and, okay,
And
and public
against.
hearing closed.
Nobody raised their hand.
Okay, so do we close the public hearing?
We'll
I'm
close
sorry.
public hearing at 7:17.
Thank you.
This is a pretty cut and dried issue. We have a comprehensive land use plan. That land is on that comp plan as RE5. That's the request that's being made. And I move we recommend approval of
Second,
this change.
Brenda, second. All in favor? Unanimous. And I need to recluse myself from the next item. It's all yours.
Okay, item number 3 public hearing for zoning change at 462 McMakin to receive public comment and consider recommendations to the council regarding an amendment to the town council or Town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361-05, the zoning regulations to change the zoning designation for a 22.13 acre tract, also known as Kennemer Edition, Block A, Lot 1, in the town of Bartonville, Texas. Bartonville, Texas, also known as 462 McMakin Road, from agricultural district ag to residential estates 2, which is RE2, which is also what is on the current land use plan for development of that property. Open the public hearing at 7:19. Staff presentation.
Sure. This item is a little bit simpler in the zoning. It is being requested for zoning change to RE2, as you mentioned, which is consistent with the land use plan. We have not received any public comment for or against on this item. And we have members from the applicant here, if you would like to hear from them, or if you
Please.
have any questions for them. But I think the intent is to split the property into a few lots, but not to develop a residential subdivision.
That is correct. So Matthew Kinnemer, grew up at 462 McMakin Road. It is 22 acres. We are one of 5 kids from James and Renee Kinnemer. Based off of how that sits, the 22 acres, we're looking at splitting off 2 so that we can build houses for the siblings. So a 2 acre lot, a 6 acre lot, and leaving a 14 acre lot to round it out. And build 2 houses for siblings. So.
Questions for Mr. Kennemer? Thank you, sir. Those in favor, are there any wanting to speak to this? Those opposed? The hearing is closed at 7:21. Discuss and take appropriate action. Comments?
It's again fairly cut and dry that it's on the plan for 2 acres.
Will it cause any road issues, like, where are the new lots at?
Well, that's like, just like in the last item, that's something that'll happen during plating. So we've talked to them kind of theoretically about some of the lots to make sure that there was enough road frontage that it would meet the town's standards for minimum lot width, and minimum road frontage. So there are really only a couple of ways to parcel the property up into 3, which was what we discussed with them. But after the zoning change is obtained, then they will come back to the town with we'll come back through with final, well, actually, I'm sorry, will not compute. Again, it's an administrative minor plat approval. So once we have all of the details worked out on the plat, I can send it out to you for just informational purposes to make sure you all see what the final plat is that gets approved. But I think the goal would be for 1 to exit to McMakin and 2 to Broome.
And
That's
that
really the only way we
the
can,
Broome end is wide enough that
for 2
without-
lots.
without creating a flag.
Correct.
Okay.
Very, absolutely. Yes, that
Good.
was a big concern. It would have been a lot easier to be able to split the property in that way, but because of that, we have minimum lot widths and minimum road frontage, and that.
As long as all that can be done.
Mhm.
I have a motion.
Motion to approve the recommendation to the town council regarding an amendment to the town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361.05, to change the zoning designation for a 22.13 acre tract, also known as Kennemer Edition, Block A, Lot 1, in the town of Bartonville, otherwise known as 462 McMakin Road, from AG to RE2.
I have a second. Yeah, moved and seconded. All in favor? It is approved. Please. Is it near? Is it hot in here? I'm gonna catch her on the way in it. Kick on the air. Could you please turn the air on or something? We're
I was
cooking.
just gonna say it's warmer in here than it is. We have no bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on item 4. Public hearing to receive public comment and consider recommendation of the town council regarding an ordinance amending the town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Exhibit A, zoning ordinances related to a new and unlisted use for event venue or banquet hall. The proposed amendment may add, remove, or change definitions and amend the land use table to indicate zoning districts where permitted. We'll open the public hearing at 7:25. Staff.
Sure, this is, we do have a presentation here briefly. The request at this time is really just to consider a new and unlisted use, which you have been through before with some other use requests lately, I believe, to consider adding in a definition for an event venue or banquet hall and the corresponding definition with that use, as well as to consider where you might allow for that use in the town's various in the various zoning districts. And then if you choose to allow it in one of the zoning districts or more, whether you would allow it by right or only by conditional use permit. So there's a draft ordinance in your packet at this time, which provides a definition and recommends approval for the Village Center zoning district only by conditional use permit. This is just based on the feedback from the applicant and what their intended plans would be and where we think it might be able to fit in within the town. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, or if you'd like to see the presentation from the applicant. And they do have some more information, but like I said, this is really just for a specific use and not authorizing any particular site or building or future project. It's really just about the use at this point. I know it's hard to separate sometimes, but that's what we're discussing tonight. We also have not received any public comments about this either. Everybody get a chance to see the definition. Or have any questions or concerns about that?
Mm-mm.
I'd like to hear the presentation.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Jim? Applicant.
And Doug Powell with McAdams, a couple slides. And as Corey pointed out, what we're really going to show you is if we came back with a conditional use permit, what you're acting on tonight is really allowing us to apply for it. Oh.
I don't even know how that happens. Sorry. Don't even know that happens here. Sorry. Give me a second. Okay. Well then. I'll be here to click through.
And on this slide, it shows in blue the property that Marty Bryan is interested in creating an event center across from Marty B's, behind the 7-Eleven. I use this slide because it shows Hudson Ranch going in, which is something that we've talked to staff about, and we know that there's some concern about the adjacency. I want to show you a little bit about that on the conceptual plan. But again, it is a property that's back behind 7-Eleven on IT Neely Road. And unfortunately, it really is a horrible site for most uses because it has no visibility. And if you can go to the next slide, zooms in a little bit. And the other thing on this property is, and if you could hit one more, hit the forward, is that's the overhead power lines that go through the property. And so we're really talking about developing only in the north side of it. And Corey, one more time, the property is also impacted by the floodplain. And that's why, even though the property arguably goes out to 407, you can't get access to 407. So the only access is through IT Neely roadway. One more. This is a conceptual plan that we're been working on. And I know it's very hard to see at this point, but we've talked to staff. And again, we know there's concerns about the adjacency to residents. We've cited it so the building, and there's a little bit of outdoor patio, it really faces away or not against towards those residents. And all along there is a berm. We're going to take some of the dirt that's out on the site and create 5-foot berms, and they have landscaping on them. But all along the back southern area in the western area, adjacent to the parking lot, and you can see it says landscape berms on that, or hopefully you can. That's an attempt to, with vegetation and that berming. Again, and there's not going to be bands. There'll be maybe some music as part of a wedding reception, but there will not be large outdoor music. But we still were concerned and wanted to try to protect those neighbors. We do show parking. Part of the thing that Marty wants to do is provide overflow parking for his employees at Marty B's that they're really running out of parking. And so there would be parking here on most instances that his employees could use for parking. There still is enough parking for most events at this facility that are paved. And we've worked with staff and talked to staff about what the minimum requirement is in terms of hard versus gravel parking. And again, we'll go through that as part of the conditional use permit. But this is what we're looking at right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
That little bitty building on the right side is 7-Eleven, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Mr. Fowler, are you aware we've denied a request for an event center in this location recently?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of why we denied the request?
I believe it was because of the activity in the proposed size of the venue. This is only 9,000 square feet in size.
It's not just size. We were concerned about traffic and, more importantly, noise. This town has received numerous complaints for noise in that area in the evening hours. This event center will generate noise, correct?
We believe, yes, it will create noise, but we don't believe it'll be loud or sustained. It really is not. It's not going to have, like Marty B's, it's not going to have bands playing on Friday and Saturday nights.
It will still be noise.
Correct.
Would you please contrast what your idea is now for this as opposed to the initial time you came in with that idea? I understand there are changes, but I think it would be helpful for everybody to know exactly what it is you're doing to change it.
And I know Marty's on his way over here, and unfortunately I was not here as part of the team that brought the last one forward. So really at a disadvantage in terms of the changes, but I know that Most of the activities are enclosed within the building. And again, there's a small patio in the back that you could have, wine and hors d'oeuvres and stuff. And there might be some music, but it is not that it is. Oh, good. Here's Marty. It's not that there would be a stage. There's no stage. There's no I would say there's not a desire to create a music venue at this location.
We also have Mr.
Marty,
Brian here as well. Some of the-
Marty,
The question was, how is this different from the last one?
can you repeat your question for Marty?
I apologize.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, would you please contrast for P and Z, the difference from the original plan that you came with that we rejected to this one? I know there are differences, but everybody needs to know what they are. So you're the man.
Yes, ma'am. 913 Hat Creek Court, Bartonville, Texas. Marty Bryan. How y'all doing? Good to see everyone. Good turnout for the election. It's pretty exciting. Okay, so what's different on this event center from the one before? There's a big difference in a number of ways. One is that originally we were going to build 8,000 square feet of space, and it was going to seat 600. We've now shrunk it to where I think it's like 9644, and it seats 296. So that's the biggest difference. The other thing is we were going to put in a full kitchen. We've taken the full kitchen out. Obviously, I've got plenty of kitchens across the street where we can prepare food, so that helped to shrink it. But we didn't shrink like the bars or the restrooms or any of that. We just shrunk the seating, and we shrunk significantly the outdoor patio section. And then the other thing we did is originally the space was going to be right across from RDB's. And the other thing we've done is we've pushed it. I don't know, Doug, how many feet it is, but it's significantly farther back. In fact, if you look at the footprint there, I don't know if you have a reference for it, but the entrance really into the event center is the second entrance from RDB's. Originally, the front entrance of the event center would have been basically right across from the front entrance. So the goal in doing that, a couple of things we were thinking about. One is that we really wanted to create a barrier between 7-Eleven and the event center. We feel like for selling events and if we're going to do weddings and whatever we're going to do there, it's hard to convince the mom it's right behind 7-Eleven. So we're thinking, well, we created a barrier there. It's right across from RDB's versus being right behind 7-Eleven. The other thing that pushing it back did is allowing us to basically create more of these landscape berms. Certainly we want to be respectful to our new neighbors coming in Hudson Ranch. And so there's no shortage of dirt on the site. So we felt like we could take some of the dirt, create some berms, add vegetation. And I believe, Doug, those berms are around 5 feet so that we could create, a sound barrier going into that neighborhood. But if you'll also look at the way we've positioned it, it points back to the southwest corner, which with all the tree lines and vegetation that separates us and CJ Legacy, I wouldn't expect there to be a significant amount of noise going either direction. I think the other concern in the past was the amount of traffic that it could generate. And so with us shrinking the footprint by more than half, we've mitigated the amount of traffic that would be coming in and out of there. And I think we've all been to weddings. Not everyone leaves at the same time. It's kind of intermittent when people leave. But if you compare the amount of occupancy at the event center compared to the amount of traffic we have at Marty B's on a Saturday or the amount of traffic coming in and out of 7-Eleven, you get lost. It's not even worth really looking at because of the volume of traffic that already exists there. So no noise was an issue, traffic was an issue, and I think those were the two biggest things from before.
Some of the things that we discussed on this resubmission, because as you're all aware, this was a use that was denied in the past on that property. And so the size, I think, just to clarify, I don't know if you heard Mr. Bryan, but the size originally was, I think, 18,000, not 18,000. So the new submission is about half the size. And that's half of the occupancy load, half of the parking requirement. It kind of shrunk all of that by half. So the current proposal is for an occupancy of around 300, a little under 300 versus, like he said, 600 last time, plus full kitchen staff and everything that would not be there in the current footprint. And then the sound, at least from the notes of what I've seen, the outdoor music was obviously a very hot button issue for the town, had caused some issues upon the opening of Marty B's from the noise from the outdoor music. And so that was a big consideration, as well as to not include outdoor bands, outdoor music. And so we kind of talked about that and how that would be worded. I mean, if somebody wanted to have some, I don't know what you even call light music out at an actual reception that was held outdoors versus actually having, the wedding reception, not the party reception kind of after. I think that was what the intent was that we talked about. I don't know what the other changes were like, just like Doug, I wasn't here on the original submission, but those are the things that I've come across so far.
I know that, there are some other challenges we've dealt with since the beginning has been parking. And so being able to have some additional parking for any overflow at Marty B's, that gravel parking gives us overflow for the event center and also overflow into Marty B's, which I think, we all know there's 2 new restaurants opening up in the Bartonville Town Center, right? So it's been a blessing that there hasn't been a lot of activity over there in the last 4.5 years. And we've benefited from that as a result and been able to park a lot of people in that space. That will not last forever. And so in order for us to avoid a parking crisis, Kim's coming in, coffee shops coming in, we felt it would be in our best interest and the interest of everyone that we create additional parking by the event center.
You still have to have a public hearing open at some point, and
Uh,
we don't have
anyone
any
to
comments that
speak?
we've received, but you'll have to open it and
Anyone to speak for it? Anyone to speak against?
open at
You
7.
need to- Did you? open the
41?
public hearing?
Yeah, we open.
I thought he did
Okay,
too.
okay.
And we'll close
None.
public hearing at 7:41. Discussion.
Speak against it.
Well, Marty, I admire the work you've done to mitigate the problems that we've seen in the past with noise and traffic. However, the town has had many complaints about the noise generated from your current venue. And I don't believe we'd be doing the town a service by adding an additional noise component to the village center area.
And can you clarify how there would be additional noise coming out of an event center when all the sound would be inside the facility?
You'll have traffic coming in and out.
Harry, we already have traffic coming in and out. Do you know we have over 3,200 cars that come in and out of Marty B's every Saturday?
And you'll have that many more coming in.
No, we will not. It'll seat 296. So that's less than 10% of the traffic we already have. And I'm sure the town has done its due diligence and knows the amount of parking that goes along IT Neely and into 7-Eleven. And so I don't understand that being a touching point or a sticking point when there's already a massive amount of traffic there. And I'd like to also point out, if y'all have this information, how many violations Marty B's has been given in the 4.5 years I've been open for sound. You have that information?
No, but there was enough noise for the town to generate a noise ordinance,
That's right.
specifically for the purpose of controlling the noise in that village center area. Specifically for that.
Yeah, I was singled out. You're right, Harry.
I'm not saying you were singled
What?
out.
There was an ordinance created as a result of the noise at Marty B's. Of course, I was singled out and I've gotten over it. And I've done everything within my power. The whole town could commit to that to mitigate any sound issue. I've invested in the new sound system. You all as a town were very gracious. Y'all gave me funding and I'm super appreciative. Lantana Board, the water board, they also gave me funding. We had a sound engineer come in there. I added a styrofoam in the top of my ceiling. I built this huge event space on the back to prevent the music from going into Lantana, which Lantana doesn't even fall in Bartonville jurisdiction. They're in the county. The sound ordinance in Lantana is 85 decibels. That doesn't even register at Marty B's because the traffic generates more decibels than that. And I just haven't, based on any, I haven't been given any citations for breaking any sound ordinance. Harry, none of us are guaranteed silence. You hear planes fly over. We hear trains blow their horns. We hear mufflers. We hear people driving by in loud music. You know, we're not playing 3 hours solid. We play for an hour and 20 minutes each set. We play until 10 o'clock. That's an ordinance. I follow it. Start at 7, we end at 10. Does anybody else have any issues that you would like for me to address? I'm very happy to accommodate you.
Anybody else have questions?
I think this concept, considering we have the option of putting, I would recommend any kind of CUP on here. I think some of the issues we're talking about can be taken care of and be addressed with the CUP without us denying the ability to have this building put up when he's gone to the point of cutting it in half and from what it initially was. What's the difference in people coming?
600 down to 296.
So half the people, a little less, and half the square footage. And the CUP can address hours and music.
And Harry, I'm not just
And-
picking on you. I mean, ultimately, I want you all to be in favor of all the things that I do there. I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good neighbor. It does not benefit me as a business owner to upset the people in my community. That's a terrible business decision. But I also have to outweigh the greater good versus the folks that are unhappy. And I would say I'm very proud of what we've done at Marty V's. We're making a difference in people's lives in this community. We do a lot of good things, Harry. A lot of good things.
But that's not a discussion here.
Well-
I think everyone's delighted with Marty B's. My concern is the noise component, in addition to the other reasons that this component was denied.
But Harry, please, with all due
Unless there's
respect,
a material change, unless we're convinced or I'm convinced there's been a material change in the problems that we've seen here that caused the denial in the first place, I don't see any basis for reversing our decision from the first time.
well, you have a right to your opinion. I
As
totally
I
respect
said,
it.
In my opening comment, I think you've done a tremendous amount of work to mitigate.
I just don't understand your argument on sound when we have no intent to have any music on the outdoors. Any music on the outdoors would be Here Comes the Bride. If someone wants to get married outdoors, I'm not going to deny them to play that song when they get married. People aren't getting married at 10 o'clock at night. They're getting married in the early afternoon. And I would expect any commentary to be fair and reasonable.
These are going to be all private affairs, correct?
100%.
And how are you going to control the environment at each private affair?
I control the whole environment. I control every element that happens in there, Harry. I'm going to set up rules of engagement for anyone that does business with me and working with the town through some type of conditional use permit, as Gloria suggested. I'm happy to accommodate anything that you all feel could be a problem. If it's sound, think about the coffee shop. What did we do at the coffee shop? You all suggested that I face all my speakers south. I can't have a speaker facing east. I can't have a speaker facing north, and I can't have a speaker facing west. I can only have a speaker on my outdoor patio facing south. That's exactly what I'm doing. Is that reasonable? No, but it's what I'm doing because I want to be in good graces with the town.
I remember correctly, initially, that this seems to be big difference than what you brought originally, where you were going to have a lot of outside stuff. Am I correct in assuming now that that is a shift from what you were going to do about? And if so, would you elaborate on that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll admit my timing before wasn't ideal. It was a terrible time to bring it before the town. We were all dealing with challenges with sound, and I was dealing with, the only benefit of the sound is that I was in the newspaper every week for sound complaints. That was pretty cool. I mean, at least they were talking about us. I don't know. But, you know, I've learned a lot about sound. I've learned a lot about this community. And I mean, the biggest challenge is that we just reduced the amount of space. Even before, we had never said we were going to do music outside. I just think when we originally put the footprint together, we had a lot of outside seating, which could have generated more noise. But, you know, I've also gotten smarter, believe it or not, over the last 4 years. And so I've done some research on event centers, and ultimately the most amount of people they typically have is 150 to 200. You know, every now and then there may be an event that has more than that, but the average is around 150 to 200. But being in the community like we are, I felt like 296 gives us an opportunity to host, you know, sports galas, banquets. You know, I'm hosting an event on my rooftop right now for Denton Geyer. We host banquets almost weekly to support the community. And so I want to be able to provide that space where we can continue to host events. Do you know how hard it is to go find a space locally to host an event that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg? And I feel like we've kind of been that space. People can come and have an event, be treated fairly with respect, and then have an amazing event at our place. And so given what we know about demand for space, I feel like the event center would be a huge value add for the community as everything grows up around us. I'm not looking to raise a lot of hell over there, Harry. I'm looking to create a space for amazing events, weddings, anniversaries, bar mitzvahs, banquets, conference.
We haven't had people to oppose, in favor, anyone to speak in favor.
You'll just,
Did have you
no,
filled out
this is a
card?
public hearing. If you can just state your name and address for the record. When you get a chance to speak,
Yes.
you'll have a chance for rebuttal at the end.
Mike Mallow. I'm at 916 Dove Creek Court, and I had zero plans on doing this tonight. But one thing I just want to throw in my 2 cents. As a builder and developer, that's possibly the worst piece of dirt you could want. And it's, as a Bartonville resident, that's an eyesore. You've got Marty B's at a beautiful farm next door, a nice 7-Eleven, and this terrible piece of property. You got a guy that wants to invest in your town that has power lines, a floodplain, and he's got this little peninsula to build this thing on. I don't understand the downside. It is a tremendous ad for the community. My son works there, and I don't even like Marty. I'm not, but he's a great guy for the community. I got a 16-year-old that loves going up there every Saturday night and bus tables, puts on his cowboy hat, and he has a blast. And that's what this will help this town. It'll help with a 16-year-old kid that, you know, we don't let him work during school because he needs to get his school grades, but he works on the weekends. And, you know, a wedding, like, when you go to a wedding in Texas and you're ever outside, you're not, because they're getting married. It's too dang hot outside. They're going to be inside. I've never seen a picture of this place. Nothing. I had zero. I have no idea I was going to do this, but you guys got a terrible piece of dirt there. If you got a guy that's going to spend the money, let him do it and support him. And then it goes with this whole concept that he's doing, because he's the only one that makes sense to do it for. There's no other guy going to come and go, oh, I've got to have that piece of dirt. It's just so awesome. It's going to be a fortune just to get the dirt ready to build on. And if they're going to berm it It's going to create sound absorption, physical presence. It's going to do a lot of things. So he's going to do it right because he's using my engineers. So he's using all the right people. So that's all I've got for you guys. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but thanks for at least listening. Just consider it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's just so anxious. to
I know,
talk.
I know. And I understand that. We get very passionate about this. I'm Kim Cloud, owner of Cloud9 Salon and Spa. We live we live all over everywhere. But anyway, we are building in front in the space to the west of Marty B's. But we're so excited to be coming to this town. And I've dealt with other towns locally, and it's been such a positive experience. But we need this parking. I mean, I got excited when I saw the drawings go up because if you drive by on the weekend, our lot is full of cars and overflow from Marty B's, and we're expecting 200 people a day with our salon, and we've got the parking for that. We're self-maintained. But you go by there last Thursday night was a very successful event that gave back to charity, a charity that's making a difference in moms that are passing. And Marty did that event, and there were hundreds of people there, and his parking lot was full and our parking was full, and we don't even have parking yet, but it was full. And so I just think it's such a great way to increase an issue that we all know we're going to have. We have opposite hours. So Marty and I are, I think, perfect neighbors. We're going to be super busy during the day. My team tends to leave around 4 or 5 o'clock. Marty can, overflow into our parking, but he needs, like he said, the issue that Christopher and I've talked about a lot that we see coming is his employees have been parking over at Bartonville Square, and that's going to end for him. That's the truth. And so to have an event center, can you imagine a woman coming, bringing her whole, she's a bride and she's bringing her whole bridal party, and they're getting their hair and makeup done, and they're having their event at this event center. It's indoors. I think the sound issue has been spoken of enough, but I just am impressed by the way it looks, the way it blends with everything we're trying to do. We want to partner together. We want to be good neighbors. And we look forward to something like this being a part of Cloud9 Salon and Cloud9 Charities as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Rick Hopper, 1847 East Jeter Road, Bartonville, Texas. Speak in favor. I don't like Marty either, but that's not true. I love Marty. I've been involved with a lot of different types of live music, lots of events, and I just want to express the difference between a 9-piece band rocking out, a bunch of people drinking booze, in an audience facing a community that I've never seen anybody do more with his business and spend more of his own money satisfying his neighbors than Marty has done in the last few years. Rock star right there. But there's a big difference between somebody sitting on a chair on a pedestal playing an acoustic guitar, singing love songs to some folks getting married. It's just a big difference. It really is a big difference. And I think the mitigation of the berms and the vegetation, I think the parking solution is going to be kind of a big deal as well. So that's all I got.
Speak for. Anyone to speak against? Then we'll close the public hearing at 7:57. Sure. We're closed, but go.
Yeah, so we had the team at McAdams, we did a analysis on the space, talking about all the objections on the land that Mike eloquently outlined. Good job, Mike. Yeah, and so there's a reason that land sat there for 4 years. I was watching it. I always wanted it, but I didn't always have the money. And so I feel like it's mine for a reason, because we're going to do something special with it. And we, out of 14.78 acres, do you know how many acres I can actually go vertical on the whole entire space? 6. And it's not all up front. There's one little stretch on the back side, the southern side that borders CJ Legacy. And it's so narrow, I don't even know, once all the setbacks are put in, that I can even build anything there if I even truly wanted to. So it's a terrible investment. The reason no one else wanted it. I actually want it. I want to make it amazing. I want to do something special with it. And with your support, I want to make you proud.
I don't think we're gonna have the noise problem that we would have had with the first one.
That may be true, but more noise is more noise. And I think it's my opinion that we need to find a more logical way to settle the noise issue. If the town engineer can have a study done or spend more time on it, this noise is a serious issue for the people around that community.
The biggest part of the noise was the outdoor band. And I know as long as that's not happening here, we're not going to be able to solve the traffic. People are moving here, everywhere, Argyle, and driving down 407, that traffic is going to just be there, and it's going to be constant, and it's going to probably end up even becoming more laned, and that traffic we can't, this 300 people is not going to, I think the traffic is mute. I think the only thing is if we do a CUP and make sure there is no outdoor bands or anything like that, I kind of tend to think this is a good use of this space possibly.
And I remember I attended a DRC meeting about this prior. And one of the things I was concerned about was alcohol issues with cars. And Marty assured us that there would be security to make sure that they paid attention to that, those situations. Almost everything that we were so concerned about, and rightly so, with the initial one, has been addressed by it being smaller and holding less people. And there's adequate parking for those people, not even spilling over into that gravel, just on the hard surface. And any of the issues with the sound or anything like, that is your greatest concern, that's where the CUP comes in. So I think this is a good thing. That is a terrible piece of property, and it is absolutely ugly. And I don't remember who dumped all that dirt on it, but it's a big old huge mountain of dirt, which isn't going to help Hudson Ranch have to drive by and look at that thing. And it's not a suitable piece of property to put any kind of retail or anything else back there. Nobody can see it. It is in my estimation, a good use of that piece of property.
I would agree.
Couple comments.
Yeah, I just had a comment, and maybe just for the audience. Tonight's action doesn't rezone that property. It just adds a use to the
That's
use
what I was
chart.
going to.
Okay. And like it says, drafted would add a conditional use permit for the VC district. So Marty would have to come back to get the CUP or CUP for this particular track. But tonight's action just adds the event venue banquet hall use to your use chart.
You have the definition.
A facility or portion thereof which is rented, leased, or otherwise made available to any person or group for a private event function that is not open to the general public, whether or not a fee is charged.
That's the item that we're having before us
Yeah.
tonight. And I understand where you're coming from.
He may be quickly
I do.
coming back for that change in zoning, but that is not tonight's item.
That definition was deliberately omitted from our ordinance.
I agree with Gloria. I think it's a good use of that property.
I will-
I think he's addressed and will have to further address with the CUP, the noise issue.
If you give me just 1 second, just to keep in mind, when we're talking about adding uses, I think one thing that's helpful is to kind of consider what is in place in that district currently. Is this something that's compatible with what you have already agreed to allow in that location? And so just as you were talking, I was reading through some of the uses that are allowed in the Village Center District right now, not by conditional use permit, but by right. And those include things like alcoholic beverage sales, auto repair for minor repairs, daycare facilities, grocery store, hardware store, movie theater, restaurants, retail, private schools, sporting goods stores, martial arts and dance studios and that sort of thing. So if you think about those types of uses, those are all things that you generally would be a draw. They would be like a retail draw or something that would bring people in. I can't imagine that any of those would really have less traffic or noise than, at least from the outdoor noise. And I'm not talking about music and bands, but just from the traffic and noise perspective, I don't think that any of those would really have lesser sound and noise from that. So if you would like to kind of limit any other uses from going in the district that have those similar sites or similar types of traffic and noise requirements, I could see not allowing this in that district, but I just wanted to put some perspective on what you allow there currently.
I think, well, my main concern is evening hour noise when people are ready to retire.
So one use
It's
that I
not
didn't
daytime
mention.
noise, that is my
Ano-
concern.
Another use that you allow in that district right now is sexually oriented businesses, which obviously is not something that you would probably want in that area. That's allowed in your current zoning ordinance.
We
So that is-
legally had to do that,
Mhm.
or we
So
wouldn't
that
have.
would be an evening or a night use, not similar, but I mean, that would be not a daytime traffic type of use. So I just,
Did we not write that, however, Corey, with it having to be a very large distance away from homes? And I,
would have some other specifics and yeah. Mhm.
Sexual oriented.
yeah,
Didn't we have to put that in?
We had to
because
put
by
it in,
state
but-
law,
You would have.
and they regulate it. Is that correct?
That's not
Right.
the matter at hand.
I didn't want the whole audience scared that we were going to get sex shops,
Right.
though. That, we did the best we could to make it pretty darn hard to ever do it here.
Yeah.
But it's there because that's legal thing we had to do.
Anybody have any more comments?
I want to ask Marty one quick question. You threw a lot of numbers out now, was it? But let's say maximum capacity of what you have. How many cars would you anticipate? If you did the arithmetic on it, if maximum capacity, say for a wedding,
One
how
per
many
two
cars would be coming in
occupancy.
at that point?
Yeah, I guess 150 would be the max. Every two people came with one car.
Okay.
In the event center like that, there's a lot of rideshare happening. They're coming in from out of town. So what you have to park isn't necessarily what you do in that setting, right? Like they're learning with hotels don't need near the amount of parking that they once needed because everyone's ride sharing in the hotels. They have to choose.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for you. Marty,
Yes, sir.
if we approve the rezoning and you come back with a plan, if the CUP states that you cannot have any outdoor music, would you still proceed with your plan?
Yes, sir. I haven't intended to play out for music. Well, not live music. I mean, again,
We had discussed no amplified sound, I think, maybe. Or some way to make it so that it was not, or within a certain noise.
What's the purpose of the sound ordinance? If the purpose of the sound ordinance is to control sound, we already have measures in place without me doing anything to a CUP that control that. So now we're gonna add another ordinance on top of another ordinance to control a sound problem that may not even exist. And so I just don't think that makes any sense. I mean, I'm happy to do what you want to do. I want to understand what you're asking of me. I mean, I've got a lot of money being invested in this.
I don't see the wedding march as being the equivalent of a band playing in the background.
3 minutes and then,
Anybody else have any questions
Good.
I'm good.
or motion?
Go for it, Gloria. Okay. I move that we propose to council to amend the existing ordinance to add the definition and amend the land use table to allow the event center definition that we have in our packets.
Second. Brenda, all in favor? Unanimous.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 5, public hearing to receive public comment and consider recommendation to town council regarding a site plan application for Cloud9 Management LLC for a 1 acre tract of land identified as Dickman Plaza Addition, Block A, Lot 1R-4, generally located on the west side of FM 407, north of IT Neely and south of the Bartonville Town Center. Staff.
This is a site plan that actually we had listed on the agenda last month, but it wasn't quite ready for action. Since then, we've received all the construction plans related to the site.
We'll open public hearing at 8:09.
So we've received all the construction plans and everything in your packets that I originally sent out on Friday. There were still some comments left to be addressed. And so I said that we may have a different recommendation by the time of the meeting. We did receive a resubmission and then the town engineer went back and forth with the applicant's engineer, made they made several revisions and have addressed at this point all of the outstanding comments. So in your new packet, which is loaded on the Chromebooks for you tonight, there is the response letter showing that all of the comments were addressed, as well as the acceptance letter from the town engineer. And additionally, there was an inclusion of a response from the Emergency Services District from the fire department stating that they recommend approval as well. So at this point, we don't have any outstanding comments from a staff perspective from planning, engineering, and fire safety. And everything is meeting the town's ordinances, and we're recommending approval.
Applicant?
One more presentation. Hold on, sorry.
It's Corey. Good evening, PNZ and town staff. My name is Kara King with McAdams. The address is 201 Country View Drive, Roanoke, Texas, 76262. And I'm here to represent Cloud9 Salon and Spa PNZ meeting. Okay, first, just a list on the agenda, team introductions, project location and background, the final plat, site plan, architectural plans, and then I'll have a short rendering visualization and then questions. So just a little bit about our team and who we have here in the audience. We have Kim and Chris Skidmore and Nathan Dean with Cloud9, myself with McAdams, and then with GHA Architect, we have Wendy Ruff and Alicia Fisher. A little bit about the site. This is a location map showing Bartonville Town Center. You got FM 407, IT Neely, and you can see Marty B's and the Coffee Co. And then Cloud9 kind of sits right there in the middle, fronting FM 407. The proposed building is 14,749 square feet. It is 2 floors. Current land use and zoning is Village Center. The final plat was filed on April 10th of 2019. And like Corey had mentioned, we were approved at ZBOA in April of 2022. And then the access to the site is FM 407 and IT Neely. This here is just a picture of the final plat that was filed back in 2019. And this right here shows the site plan. You can see the building right there in the center, and then you've got the existing on the west, existing on the north, and then the fire lane that wraps around the east and south side of the building. This is kind of a colored rendering of the whole site. If you're looking at it straight on, so that's to the west is Marty B's parking lot. To the east is FM 407. To the north is Bartonville Town Center. And to the south is Marty B's east parking lot. And these are the architectural plans. This first one is the east building elevation. So that is what is facing FM 407. This next one is the north building elevation. This is what is facing Bartonville Town Center. This is the west building elevation, and this is what is facing the Marty B's north parking lot. And this is the south building elevation that is facing the parking lot to the east of Marty B's. These are just the dumpster elevations to show the wall that'll be around the dumpster. And this is the first floor plan. And the second. And then this right here is the concept board. So it shows the materials being used and then how they compare with the adjacent properties. Site photometrics. And then can you go down to the next slide? I will take questions after this short presentation. It has sound, Corey. It's fine.
That's cool.
I know, isn't it? It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like the wow
See all those
factor.
flowers blooming all the time.
It's pretty cool.
Store frontage in it?
The what?
Did Marty pay you to have a store frontage in that?
No.
Well, my question, is the parking, because parking is such a problem over there. So would you review the hours of operation for Cloud9?
Can I phone a friend? Kim will help me with that, the owner.
You bet. I didn't bring my cheat sheet. We ran a really good spreadsheet that shows, but we open, our front desk is staffed at 8 a.m. and they leave every day, Monday at 5, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7, Friday at 4, and Saturday at 2 or 3. We shut it down pretty early on the weekends. Our busiest days of the week are Tuesday and Friday from 12 to 4. There are 50 of us, but none of us are all there at the same time. It's one of the beautiful parts of our industry is that we can manipulate our schedules and do accordingly. We are in 4,100 square feet right now, that same number of people operating every day in Lantana, and we're sharing space. And so it's just a fantastic opportunity to make things work for, what works for each individual woman or man. And, Marty and Christopher and I have had lots of discussions about parking. It's a big deal. And the thing that we love the most is how our schedules are so opposite. Will there be some times that it overlaps? Of course. The event last Thursday night, it started pretty early, I think 5 o'clock or so, right, Marty? So, we're gonna have to share. We're gonna have to be sweet, be good neighbors. And that looks to us, it looks like that, maybe we're parking around the pond. That's open parking. That's not mandated by Bartonville Square. They're not going to police that, is what they've said to us. Or just us communicating. Maybe it's a calendar between Marty and I of what events we have. When we have our grand opening, we'll have a big crowd. We're going to overflow into his parking, and we expect him to overflow into ours on those weekend evenings when we're not there. I can get more specific about ours, but we're pretty opposite schedules.
There was no variance requested for parking, though. There was originally, and then that was part of the application that was withdrawn. It was only for one space when it came down to it on this resubmission with the lesser square footage, and they just reworked the site to make it fit. So we may have supported a variance just because of the altering schedules, that they're not all there using all of the square footage in the building at once, but there wasn't a request for one. So they've met the town's requirements for parking.
Anyone to speak for? Anyone to Okay.
I just wanted to, Marty Brown, 913 Hat Creek Court, Bartonville, Texas, 76226. Just wanted to speak on Kim's behalf, her, Chris, and Nathan. I've witnessed personally, how hard they've worked to put this thing together. They've had a lot of challenges. And I care about them as humans, number one. I care about their business and I care about my business. And so we have to have adult conversations about how our businesses are going to coexist. It's very important. So I feel like we're in a good place for how we're going to be able to conduct business, support each other's businesses. But it takes me back to Harry's question about parking, which, thank you all. The 177 parking spaces we're going to have next to the event center is going to alleviate a lot of issues with parking. I want you to know that on a Friday night and a Saturday night, we have between 140 to 150 hourly employees working at Marty B's. They have to park somewhere. We've been parking them in the very back part of the town center over by the breakfast place because there's no traffic there. Town of Bartonville, Town Center has been very gracious. They've allowed us to do that, but with the barrel opening, with the other Italian food place opening, that space may not continue to be available. So I say all those things because I think where we're at is awesome. And I think she's going to be a great neighbor. I think she's going to add a lot of value to the town of Bartonville. I'm excited because she's going to have people that want to have coffee in her salon. She's going to have people that want to have barbecue, a drink. It's a lot of work to get your hair done. And they're going to need a place to come and decompress. So I'm 100% in favor of Cloud9. I'm excited for them.
Anyone to speak against? Then we'll close the public hearing at 8:20.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the engineer. Considering traffic from these new venues, do you feel that there's any concern about the overall traffic in that area, or do we need to do a study? Because in particular, left turns out of that area are difficult, even today. So we have all this new stuff coming.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. One of the things as the event center moves forward, we'll probably look at doing a traffic impact study coming out of IT Neely on the 407 or kind of just that area as it goes around. It'd actually be good to study anyway, just with all the development that's coming through there.
Do you have any other, they've taken care of all your questions?
Yeah,
concerns?
there was a couple outstanding ones regarding drainage and some grading at the 88 parking, and they fixed that.
See, there was a question about the dumpster. Did that get resolved?
For the
They
dumpster location?
So they received a variance for the location of the dumpster. So that
Okay, what variances did we grant?
the entire list of variances that let me get back to that page in the packet. I'm sorry. All of the variances that were requested were approved. And I will.
It's actually on sheet
I'm sorry.
C3. The variances are on the plan, on the site plan. It's hard, it's really hard to read.
They're also in the agenda memo. I just kind of revisited those for those who weren't in attendance at the Board of Adjustment hearing, but the variances were approved for, let's see, there were some for building materials and composition, which were for the amount of glazing, like the glass windows and doors on two different facades or two different elevations of the building, as well as for the percentage of masonry, which originally they had it higher. Then after meeting with the DRC and kind of changing some of the building materials up to fit in with the other properties, it raised or it lowered the percentage of masonry. The garbage enclosure, they did receive the variance for the location of that between the building and the road. It's kind of set down into the corner of the property, but the way the ordinance reads, it can't be placed between the street and the building. There's really almost streets, or there's access all the way around the building. So we felt like that was reasonable. The Board of Adjustment approved that location. Some landscaping requirements really to reduce the number of like large trees. They're replacing it with a larger number of smaller trees, and that's really due to the various easements. I know you saw on the other project on the event center site that they discussed the large kind of utility easement that runs through the property. There are a number of different utility lines through this site, and due to the parking and trying to fit everything in that footprint, there's just not a lot of room left for large trees, but they are adding in quite a bit of smaller landscaping. Let's see, and then there's also just a small reduction in the landscape buffer between the site and the parking lot to the east of Marty B's, which is to the south of the site. But that's really going to be just pushing two parking lots up against each other. And so having a reduced buffer between parking and parking, we felt like was reasonable as well. So that's the kind of the rundown. I think I got all of the variances there.
I have a question about those dumpsters, or that dumpster. I understand that's a good place for it. But when it went by there, it went by so fast. Are you going to have some kind of door on that, or something where people aren't actually looking at it, since it's right out there up front and center kind of?
Yes, Gloria, there will be a door on the face of it, similar to what's on Marty V's dumpster enclosure.
Thank you.
And I believe it's in the, on one of the slides.
I was trying to
The
find
dumpster
it, but
elevation. Yeah, so the dumpster elevation, you can see letter B. Right there. Okay, so in the on the right-hand side of the page, the 4 images that are there, it's the top right-hand corner. That will be the front. It shows the doors for that enclosure.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good.
Motion to approve the site plan application from Cloudline Management LLC for a 1 acre tract of land identified as Tinkelman Plaza Addition, Block A, Lot 1R-4, generally located on the west side of FM 407, north of IT Neely and south of the Bartonville Town Center.
Second, Brenda second, all in favor?
Thank you.
Your agenda items?
One more agenda item. I don't know if this is just the discussion regarding the June meeting date change.
Oh.
That was put on here Friday, where we had some things that were outstanding for that week. But I'm not requesting a change at this point. So it was just on the agenda just in case, but I think I have everything worked out schedule wise.
Anything else? Then we're adjourned at 8:26.
Amen.